Chapter 1. The surprising moment, tension at the global summit. In the international arena, diplomacy, respect, and protocol usually prevail. However, some moments shatter all of these and leave the world in shock. At the United Nations Global Leaders Summit, all eyes were on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traoré. This platform brought together different geographies, cultures, and ideologies, where every leader was expected to speak with respect. But that day, things would take an unexpected turn. Netanyahu's unexpected and disparaging remarks towards Traoré created a deep silence throughout the hall. These words targeted not only Traoré, but the dignity of the entire African continent. Yet, Traoré's response. That response was powerful and silent enough to go down in history. Chapter 2. Beyond Words, the Power of Silence. Netanyahu's mocking attitude unfolded, live in front of hundreds of cameras and millions of viewers worldwide. But Traoré chose not to respond with anger or retaliation. Instead, he took a deep breath and maintained his calm. This stance was the opposite of what many expected. Because leadership is shown not only through words but also through presence, Traoré's silence sent a message louder than Netanyahu's words. An unyielding will that can never be belittled. Chapter 3. Changing the course of history. This incident was not just a clash between two leaders. It was a symbolic moment marking the long-standing political and economic exclusion of Africa. Traoré's response signaled Africa's declaration of its power, respect, and rightful voice on the global stage. Western media called it Africa's silent strength, while millions on social media supported Traoré's stance. Chapter 4. Global Reactions. What the World Said. Netanyahu's behavior drew harsh criticism from the international community. Many countries and leaders applauded Traoré's composure and criticized Netanyahu. The African Union declared the event a symbol of continental solidarity. The people of Burkina Faso greeted this moment with pride and hope. This tense moment would become a turning point in the reshaping of world power balances. Chapter 5. Looking ahead, a new balance of power. Traoré's silent resistance inspired many developing countries. Not only Africa, but Latin America, Asia, and other regions also strengthened their fights for independence and respect. Netanyahu and other old world powers were forced to change their strategies against this new wave. The rules of the global power game had now changed. Chapter 6. Netanyahu's plan and the fragile balance behind the scenes. Netanyahu was a strong and experienced figure in Israeli politics. He had skillfully navigated the complex political balances of the Middle East for many years. But this time, he was facing not just a head of state, but a leader representing the future of his continent, Ibrahim Traoré. Before the meeting, Netanyahu had prepared to diminish Traoré's influence in Africa and undermine him in front of other leaders. Yet, he encountered an unexpected stance. Traoré's calm and confident demeanor disrupted Netanyahu's plans. Few had challenged him like this before. This situation began to reveal Netanyahu's vulnerable side. Chapter 7. Traoré's silent revenge. For Traoré, the meeting was more than an official event. He was there to protect the honor and dignity of Africa. Netanyahu's words had wounded not only him, but also the spirit of millions of Africans. At that moment, years of accumulated responsibility toward his people flooded Traoré's mind. Instead of words, he chose silence. This silence exposed the emptiness of Netanyahu's words. Traoré's gaze seemed to say, "You may underestimate me, but this is not the last word of my continent." Chapter 8. Global Media Under Fire. The live broadcast of those moments was watched by millions worldwide. Media outlets described the event as Africa's silent resistance. Some newspapers harshly criticized Netanyahu's remarks, while others praised Traoré's composure. On social media, hashtags spread rapidly. Hashtag Africa Speaks and hashtag Traoré vs Netanyahu trended globally. People interpreted Traoré's stance as honor and strength. This unexpected moment became a source of inspiration for the African people. Chapter 9. Diplomatic Reverberations and Domestic Turmoil. The incident sent waves within Netanyahu's own party. Some members questioned how their leader could lose control in such a setting. Opposition parties harshly criticized him and used the incident as a political weapon. In Burkina Faso, Traoré's popularity soared. The people proudly welcomed their leaders. Calm demeanor and felt their international respect increasing. Chapter 10. Traoré's vision for the future and Africa's rise. Traoré was thinking not just about that moment but about Africa's long-term future. This silent resistance was the beginning of Africa asserting its place firmly on the world stage. For economic independence, political unity, and technological advancement, he developed projects. Following the summit, Traoré convened the African Union and took concrete steps to increase continental solidarity and cooperation. Chapter 11. Netanyahu's breaking point, inner conflict and strategy shift. After that moment, Netanyahu plunged into deep thought. The media criticisms, unrest within his party, and Traoré's rising silent power had shaken him. This was not only a personal defeat, but a serious threat to Israel's international image. His eyes were fixed on past victories. But now, he had to forge a new path. The old methods would no longer suffice. Netanyahu's advisors proposed different strategies to recover the situation. However, he knew a deeper change was necessary. He had to learn from Traoré's stance. Chapter 12. Traoré's continental leadership vision. Ibrahim Traoré embraced the responsibility of being not only the leader of Burkina Faso but the voice of the entire African continent. He developed policies for the continent's development, accelerated infrastructure projects, and worked to create opportunities for the youth. More importantly, he started uniting African leaders. He delivered messages of unity. Our voice will now be louder on the world stage. This vision sparked a new wave of hope across Africa. Chapter 13. World leaders' reactions, support and opposition. The incident at the summit caught the attention of other world leaders. Some praised Traoré's courage and determination, while others criticized him for allegedly violating diplomatic protocols. However, most had to admit that Africa's rise was an irreversible reality. This marked the beginning of a new era in global power dynamics. Chapter 14. The power of public opinion and social media. After the event, social media became the hub for Africans to raise their voices to the world. Traoré's stance went viral, stirring great enthusiasm among the youth. African influencers, artists, and activists celebrated the moment and launched campaigns supporting this silent show of strength. This digital activism became a major milestone in changing Africa's global perception. Chapter 15. Fragile diplomacy after the summit. At the closing of the summit, Netanyahu and Traoré crossed paths again. This time, the atmosphere was different. The previous tension gave way to cautious respect. The two leaders began to explore ways to work together on the world stage. Despite their differing views, cooperation was inevitable in solving global issues. This encounter was the first step of a new diplomatic era. Chapter 16. Traoré's reforms and Africa's revival. Emboldened by the summit, Ibrahim Traoré launched major reforms in Burkina Faso. His priorities were economic independence through modernizing agriculture, expanding access to education, and investing in technology. His influence extended beyond national borders, motivating other African leaders to act. New trade agreements, energy projects, and support programs for young entrepreneurs created a fresh breeze across the continent. Traoré's vision showed that Africa would not only be resource-rich but also a hub for knowledge and innovation. Chapter 17. Netanyahu's reflections. A changing leader. Despite political polarization in Israel, Netanyahu accelerated his strategic transformation. He worked on reshaping relations with Africa and forging new alliances. His internal struggles pushed him to become a more flexible and pragmatic leader. He sought to replace his former harsh rhetoric with diplomatic maneuvers. Netanyahu aimed to present himself as a balanced and clever strategist on the world stage. Chapter 18. The two leaders' confrontation, a new chapter. Over time, Traoré and Netanyahu met several times on international platforms. The initial coldness was replaced by professional respect. Shared interests and global challenges compelled them to collaborate. Joint projects on climate change, counterterrorism, and economic development were launched. This process changed how world leaders viewed each other. Africa, and the world at large, were entering a new era of diplomacy. Chapter 19. Social Reflections and Cultural Change. Traoré's leadership became a symbol of hope and power among Africa's youth. A new wave of art, music, cinema, and literature blossomed. The continent was asserting itself culturally as well as economically. Israel, too, felt the impact, with increased intercultural dialogue and understanding. Chapter 20. New Dynamics in Global Power Balances. Africa's rise began to influence major powers like the US, China, and Russia. Traoré's influence in the continent shifted global balances. Netanyahu had to take more strategic steps in response to these new dynamics. Establishing more balanced relations with Africa became a priority. This new era was reshaping global power games. Chapter 21. Africa's rise. New horizons under Traoré's leadership. Under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, the African continent experienced its greatest economic and social boom in history. Investors flocked to the continent. Infrastructure projects accelerated rapidly. And Traoré laid the foundation for the future through education and technology. Programs targeting the youth. The United Nations and other international organizations developed new policies to support Africa's ascent. Traoré fostered a spirit of solidarity and shared strategy within the African Union, amplifying the continent's voice. Chapter 22. Netanyahu's changing course, a new approach to Africa. Netanyahu ushered in a new era of diplomacy toward Africa. He abandoned the old harsh and dismissive attitudes in favor of a pragmatic and cooperative stance. Israel aimed to share its expertise in technology, defense, and agriculture with African partners. This new approach was critical for Israel to regain prestige in Africa. The growing respect between Netanyahu and Traoré elevated relations between their countries to a new level. Chapter 23. New Global Balances, Cooperation and Competition. Major powers like the US, China, and Russia began to view Africa's rising influence through their own interests, sparking new diplomatic competitions on the continent. Traoré and Netanyahu sought ways to cooperate amid this rivalry. They initiated joint projects, regional security agreements, and economic partnerships. The new power balances were reshaping global politics. Chapter 24. Social Movements and Cultural Transformation. Africa's youth embraced Traoré's leadership as a symbol of freedom and strength. A new wave began in art, music, cinema, and literature. The continent was announcing itself to the world culturally as well as economically. Israel too was influenced, fostering intercultural dialogue and understanding. Chapter 25. The two leaders' new agreement at the summit. At the next global summit, Traoré and Netanyahu appeared publicly in cooperation. Setting aside past tensions, they announced joint projects for peace, development, and sustainability. This moment showed world leaders a new path. Disagreements and historical rifts could be overcome by investing in a shared future. Chapter 26. Traoré's Grand Project for Africa. Traoré planned to build a continent-wide technology and education valley. This center would nurture young talents and foster innovative startups, shaping Africa's future. The project attracted international investors and opened doors to new collaborations across the continent. Chapter 27. Netanyahu's Inner Revolution and Rebirth. Netanyahu was changing personally as well. He questioned his past, harsh attitudes and sought to become a more empathetic and understanding leader. This transformation resonated in Israeli politics and society. The friendship between Netanyahu and Traoré began building bridges between different cultures. Chapter 28. Looking forward, the world steps into a new era. The world stepped into a new era shaped by these two leaders' transformations. The global balance of power became more balanced, based on cooperation and understanding. Africa was no longer defined solely by its resources but also by its knowledge, technology, and culture on the world stage. Chapter 29. Witness to history, the end of an era, the beginning of a new age. As time passed, the echoes of that unforgettable moment deepened across the world. Netanyahu's words followed by Traoré's silent, yet powerful stance was not merely a moment between two leaders but a turning point on the global stage. From that moment on, Africa's voice grew louder and clearer. Under Traoré's leadership, the continent was accepted as a force shaping its own destiny, demanding equality and respect. Chapter 30. Legacy and Inspiration. A message for future generations. This historic moment inspired world leaders and people alike. It reminded them of the importance of listening to inner voices, respect, and peace. Traoré's leadership became a beacon of hope for young Africans. Netanyahu's transformation showed that learning from past mistakes and growing is always possible. Chapter 31. Epilogue. Power born from silence. Sometimes silence can be the loudest voice. Traoré's silence in that moment taught Netanyahu and the world a profound lesson. Respect and honor are more valuable than power. This story remains a call for leadership and humanity to understand our differences, maintain mutual respect, and build a better future together.